There has been so much talk here at Talladega about the draft. This is the last slow trip down the backstretch for these drivers. Next time by, the speculation is 201, 202, perhaps as much as 205 miles per hour. Dale Earnhardt, I think, said it best. If you want to run fast on Sunday, you'd better hook up with the B team, Buddy, Bobby, or Bonnet. The reference there to Bobby Allison, the pole sitter, Buddy Baker, the defending champion, or further back in the field, but very much a Charger, the sixth starter, Neil Bonnet. Those three cars have all demonstrated the ability here to lap at well over 200 miles an hour.
Dave, and it's important from the drop of the green flag to be able to stay with the leaders. The speeds are so great here that if you get behind at any point in the race, it's very difficult to keep up. We anticipate 10, maybe as many as 20 of the lead cars in the fastest draft in the early stages of this race. And again, it's very crucial to stay up every single lap around. 188 laps to go.
Well, they're going to stay this close through much of the afternoon if past history here at Talladega is any indication. The field rumbling down, 25,000 horsepower about to be unleashed. The pace car is on pit road. Harold Kinder has the green flag in hand. The Winston 500 is rumbling down, preparing for a start as the pole sitter Bobby Allison prepares to go. Everybody in the place is tense with excitement. Nobody more tense than those 40 drivers who are waiting for that flicker of green, and we're underway.
700 tons of automobile racing machinery and scientifically prepared equipment roars into that number one corner, and Dave Despain, it looks like a familiar sight out front, the silver and black of Bobby Allison.
Allison jumping out to that quick lead, chased by Buddy Baker. Baker trying to go down inside. Mike Alexander is there in the thick of it as they hurtle down the backstretch. Now Dale Earnhardt has moved up to third, takes over the number 2 spot, and it's Earnhardt going after Baker as they hit turn 3. The land rush is on here at Alabama International Speedway. Allison to the top of the track with Earnhardt down low. They're running side by side. That's not the fastest way around. It's Buddy Baker out front, and Neil Bonnet has now moved into 4th place as they come down for the completion of lap number 1.
While running in the draft, as Dave pointed out, if you're side by side, it slows both cars down. Has to work to the advantage of the driver out in front when you have cars behind him running side by side. It looks like Allison was able to propel himself forward by using Neil Bonnet right behind him. And it looks like the Bonnet-Allison train on the high side may take over the number 1 position.
They have decided to put that draft side by side now as they go out onto the backstretch. They've gone 3 and 4 abreast, and look at this charge from Cale Yarborough coming up on the inside. They stacked them 3 deep into the 33-degree banking at turn 3 at Talladega. Unbelievable racing. Baker in the number 1. Oh, we've got a spin, a crash. Richard Petty is involved. A tremendous tangle at turn 3. Cars spinning, careening all over this racetrack. Petty among the cars that tangled. One of the 2 Petty automobiles in this field here. There is the battered machine of Benny Parsons. This field is going to go under yellow very early in this race. Well, this is not an unheard of circumstance at Talladega. We've seen it before. Allison is the leader. There is a pall of smoke and dust hanging over turn 3. Larry, that's what can happen in this kind of very close competition.
And you're absolutely right. It does appear to have been Richard Petty, who has never won this race, and it looks like that string is going to continue here today. Son Kyle has already gone by the start-finish line. There you see Bill Elliott limping home to the pit area, the Dawsonville, Georgia driver in the Mel Gear Ford. Probably excessive tire rub on the fender as that car seems to be listing toward the forward as he coasted in with a lot of smoke coming off underneath the race car. Now,
circumstance erupted back in the second pack of cars. The lead draft trying to break away, and all the leaders were able to successfully get off. All the leaders were able to successfully get through that melee up there. The action started back further in the pack, and among the victims is going to be number 22, Stan Barrett, who's headed for the pits.
We had talked about Barrett earlier in the race, and it looks like his race is going to end very early. Dave set him up as the fastest man on 4 wheels, a reference to the fact that at one time he held the world's land speed record. Barrett is a very interesting guy, and it's really a shame that he's been knocked out of this event, or at least seemingly so early. He's a former Golden Gloves champion. He holds a black belt in karate, and of course, probably most well known as one of Hollywood's top stuntmen. Stan Barrett. Here's a replay on what occurred in that incident in the middle of the pack. You see Benny Parsons and Richard Petty apparently touching. Quite unusual for those 2 veterans. Parsons listing up toward the outside wall, giving Petty not enough racing room. Looks to me, Dave, like there may be a possibility that something broke on Benny Parsons' race car. A very unusual set of circumstances for a couple of veteran drivers like this. We see a car spinning in front. It appears to be number 33, which would be Harry Gant, another of the Skoll Bandit race cars. Connie Saylor, who flipped so terribly at Daytona in February, is involved in that yellow number 4 on the roof of the race car. And of course the field behind bearing down at better than 190, approaching 200 miles an hour. Tim Richmond, the Indianapolis 500-mile race rookie of a year ago, in that red and white number 99, just barely missing the disabled Connie Saylor car as it coasted down toward the infield. There's son Kyle coming right up behind that pack.
Well, you remember the last time we saw the stock cars on ESPN? Richard Petty had a similar circumstances. He was involved in a big melee. Here, it has happened again at Alabama International Speedway. Joe Milliken, number 75, also got into the fray. He is from Randleman, North Carolina, and that is the hometown of the Racing Petty clan. We are under yellow here at Alabama International Speedway. The crash occurring on lap 3. It has brought the field down from racing speeds well over 200 miles an hour in the early going. Allison, Baker having the battle that we all expected here, and we'll be back to that battle in just a moment.
Was involved over there, Harry. What started it?
Well, we were, right behind the fast pack, and like Darrell, Cale, Buddy, and Earnhardt, was going in the corner right there. I was right behind the 21, and Darrell drafted by on the outside, and Rick Wilson was on the inside. When Darrell went to pull in, he caught my front end, and he went, quarter pound, and it turned him sideways. Well, then Rick caught me on the left side, and it knocked me, broke the traction, turned me in the wall.
Not a thing in the world you can do.
Nothing you could do. No, I was lucky. Darrell was lucky that, he didn't spin out there, and I was too. I got to get in the wall. I was lucky nobody didn't hit me coming across the track. There's a couple cars hit a shot, but it didn't really, nobody got hurt serious or anything.
Knowing the full field bearing down on you at over 200 miles an hour, what kind of a feeling does it give you?
You just hope it don't hit you, That's what I'm thinking about when I go off the wall, Everybody done a good job, everybody went this is red. I didn't get really hit until I got to the apron on the bottom down there, so I guess it was one of the lucky times.
Well, Harry, we're glad that you're okay. The green flag is waving again.
Without Harry Gant, they have gone back to green here at Alabama International. The Alabama gang, or at least one member thereof, is out front. It is Bobby Allison who has grabbed the lead. Buddy Baker tucks right in behind him as they go down the backstretch. Now Baker looks to the inside for running room, and Baker takes the lead. Buddy Baker, a 4-time winner on this racetrack. The only man who can make that claim is out front again here today. And this is the 12th running of the Winston 500. Allison in that number 2 spot. Moving up into 3rd, Neil Bonnet. And also on the charge now is Darrell Waltrip. He is riding 4th. And behind him in the 5th position is the Grand National champion Dale Earnhardt as they come down for the completion of lap number 11. We've got a 10-car draft out front. Right back where we started, Larry.
Yeah, we are. And I think that's going to become a very familiar scene as this day wears on. As we watch Baker, not only has he won more races at this racetrack than any other of the Grand National stars in the 12-year history of the Talladega racetrack, he also has led more laps. 885 leading laps credited to Buddy Baker, and the closest man to him, well, there goes Buddy Baker being pushed off the edge of the cliff. He lost the draft, and you see 5 competitors streaming by on the inside. I was about to say the next leading lap leader of all time is, guess who, the man in front right now, Bobby Allison, who has led 486 laps prior to this race, and he's about ready to record one more if he can get through the tri-oval without being passed.
That was a classic example in Baker's case of what happens in the draft. Baker was out front, they nipped under him, he pushed him up to the top of the racetrack, and Baker went from 1st all the way back to 6th in the time that it takes to talk about it. So now you've got the Alabama gang out front with Allison leading Bonnet down the back chute. There's that 8-car freight train. We should make 2 points, I think. First, when we talk about history at Talladega. Wait a minute. Here's the Alabama gang side by side into turn 3. The charge down on the low side from Neil Bonnet. And Bonnet is going to take the lead momentarily. Allison comes back around the outside. And Earnhardt in the yellow and blue machine, the number 2 car, is right there in the thick of it. Boy, what a battle.
Well, what happened in that case was Bonnet was left out hanging to dry. He had nobody behind him when the draft came up on the outside. Nobody supported Neil Bonnet. You cannot lead at this this racetrack without somebody behind you pushing you along. And look what happened to Bonnet. He's lost 2, 4, 6, 7 positions. It looks like he's going to drop in the line 8th in that line. He was leading just 1/2 of a lap ago.
Well, that's the classic example again of this Talladega draft. We were making the point that they do run 2 races here every year. They run the spring race, the Winston 500, then come back in the late summer months when it's so hot here in Alabama to run the Talladega 500. And when you take that composite record, Buddy Baker is the top cat on this racetrack with 4 victories. Bobby Allison, who is currently running out front, has won here before. And last year, Buddy Baker beat the man now in second spot, Dale Earnhardt, by just 3 feet to the flag. So Earnhardt knows a little bit about what it's like to sit right there in that spot behind the leader. They are coming down to complete lap 15. The leaders touch nose to tail at turn 1.
Darrell Waltrip, the man right now running in 3rd position, about to drop back to 4th as he got high in the racetrack as we watch the leaders, Bobby Allison and Dale Earnhardt. I was about to say that Waltrip has won more races than any other driver on the trail this year, but the guy in front right now, I think most people feel has had the hot setup on the super speedways. As Earnhardt goes to the inside of Bobby Allison and takes over the number 1 position for the first time today, Dale Earnhardt, the defending national champion, moves to the vanguard, passing the car that, for the most part, has been the swiftest on the super speedway so far in 1981.
Here's Neil Bonnet slowing on the back chute. Neil Bonnet, who less than a lap ago dropped out of that lead draft, obviously had problems in addition to losing the draft. Something is wrong with the Wood Brothers Purolator automobile. The Ford car is coming down on the apron. Meanwhile, the leaders are battling. Here's the 3rd place war with Buddy Baker, who has scrambled back up into the thick of it, and he's right alongside Cale Yarborough. Out front, Allison and Earnhardt are tied together nose to tail. What they would... Oh, we've got a spin. A car out of control and skating down through the infield. Car number 20 of Rick Newsom from Lake Wiley, South Carolina, coasting onto the grass. Masterful bit of driving as he gathers it back up, and he managed to pull that maneuver off right at the entrance to pit road, so he'll be able to take that car in for service. It will bring out the yellow flag. The Newsom automobile going behind the wall, and so that's going to bring us back on the yellow flag. Allison and Earnhardt had hooked up. They were trying to get away from the rest of the field by running that 2-car draft, but now we'll start all over again as we go under yellow, bunch them back up, and prepare for a second restart here, the second yellow flag of the day at Alabama International Speedway. We'll be back with more of the Winston 500 in a moment. Going to be going back under green, this time by the pace car. No, check that. I believe they'll give them at least 1 more lap as they continue on pit road to do a little maintenance work on the surface there, as there was some oil there was lost from the crash. So we'll be a lap away from a restart.
Rick Wilson, the young driver from Florida, is officially being shown as in the lead. Among the leaders that pitted, however, we did catch their order as they came out of the pits, and here is how the lead draft is running. Of course, right now on the track, it's like right in the middle of all the cars that are still on the speedway. But here's how they are. Bobby Allison was the first among the leaders to get out of the pits. Dale Earnhardt was close behind, and Cale Yarborough picked up a couple of positions. He's 3rd among the leaders that are, again, are running in the middle of the pack. Buddy Baker is in there, then Darrell Waltrip, Ricky Rudd, and young Mike Alexander. So those 7 cars are in the middle of the field as you look at the race cars on the speedway. But we expect them to hook up in a 7 or 8 car freight train, move to that high racing lane, and move toward the front. We had mentioned a couple of the cars that have already dropped out of this event, in addition to the number 33 car of Harry Gant, who was the trigger of that massive 7 or 8 car pileup in the early running of this race. Connie Saylor, for the 2nd super speedway race in a row, has been wiped out of competition by a crash. Benny Parsons officially out of the race. Richard Petty, Jody Ridley, Bill Elliott, and Stan Barrett were the other drivers that were eliminated from this event early on. Also dropping out now with mechanical problems, rounding out the attrition list, Neil Bonnet and Rick Newsom.
3 Let's remind you that the very latest scores, the highlights, interviews, all the news from the world of sports is brought to you throughout the day on ESPN's Sports Center. Sports Center comes your way with 30-minute editions several times every day and night, and Monday through Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time and Sunday at 11 p.m. A full 60 minutes of Sports Center to keep you right up to date on all the latest happenings, not only from the world of motorsports, but all of sports. Sports Center, the most comprehensive sports news program on television, and it's yours exclusively on ESPN. Well, you saw there the Lake Speed car getting some attention. The field is still under yellow here at Talladega, and I would suspect that we have probably taken away the opportunity here to see the fastest 500-mile race ever. For a report on what's happening down on pit road, we'll be going down to Ned Jarrett, I believe, in a moment. Let's stand by for that as we check this field. It is indeed still under yellow, and it appears that they will need at least one more lap to clean up that situation down along pit road. Let's find out what happened to the number 21 car of Neil Bonnet, considered one of the favorites here in this race. For that report, let's go to Ned Jarrett.
Well, Glenn Wood, the car owner, who's a former driver himself, Glenn, he was out of it early here. What went wrong?
An oil pan somewhere. I'm not sure what it was. It could have been a valve or a rod one. We hadn't looked yet.
An unusual occurrence.
Well, it's unusual at this point in the race.
And you've had a lot of unusual things happen already this year.
Well, that's true. It seems like a different thing every time.
We're trying to get Neil's attention. He's back here with us. Glenn, we're sorry to see you have that tough luck. If we could get over here to Neil now, we'll get a word with him. Neil, well, we're sorry to see you out of it here in your home state so early.
It's a short day in a hurry, Ned, I tell you. The car felt awful good. You know, everybody was apprehensive about the way the car was going to drive on this big track, and the cars are driving exceptionally well, though I don't see any car out there in the front that was unstable, so it ought to be some pretty good racing.
Well, we're sorry that you're out of it. We'll go back to the tower now.
That's a disappointment for the Alabama gang, the Hueytown, Alabama crew, including Bobby and Donnie Allison and Neil Bonnet, who's been a protege of the Allison brothers through the years.
They were very optimistic coming into this weekend also, Dave. Neil, in talking with them yesterday, said the car has felt so good all year long he couldn't believe they hadn't won yet. He thought today would be his day.
We are going to be watching now as this second caution comes to a close. We are anticipating the green flag this time by. We will be seeing Rick Wilson sitting out front in the number 62 machine. The lights are still on the pace car. That should indicate that they're going to go at least one more. The problem here is oil that's been dropped from the Rick Newsom automobile when he blew that engine. Obviously, the oil on the racetrack makes it a very, very risky situation for the rest of the drivers. So until that situation has been completely cleared up, they will keep this field under yellow. We were making the point, Larry, at the top of the show, that we had thought of the possibility that this would be the fastest 500-mile race in the history of motorsports, but it's certainly not going to be that at this pace.
Well, a couple of years ago, Lenny Pond set that record at this racetrack, and in the running of the 1980 Daytona 500 at Daytona Beach, Florida, Buddy Baker eclipsed that mark. And with the speeds that these cars were running, particularly in the draft situations the past couple of days, everybody thought that this race would provide another new 500-mile record, the fastest 500-mile race in the history of automobile racing. As we look at Kyle Petty on pit road, the hood is up now. That looks to be a little more than just a broken windshield problem, Dave Despain.
Indeed it is. They've obviously gone to work on that number 42 machine. Yes, indeed, the record hopes appear to be out the window, but the thing that will remain is the 200-mile-an-hour draft. There's Richard Petty walking off, disappointed at his outcome, but still smiling nonetheless. What a great 7-time champion he is. Confirmation, there was a piece of exhaust system from the Newsom automobile that was discovered just about the time they were ready to put the field back under green, and that's what prompted this additional lap under caution. Now the lights are out on the Pontiac Turbo Trans Am pace car as the field circulates at about 80 miles an hour. That is the clue that we're about ready to crank it back up to 200 miles an hour. And the thing to watch, Larry, will be that lead pack prior to the yellow coming back through traffic and moving to the front.
You know, one of the people who started in the middle of the pack was Donnie Allison. Well, not exactly the middle, but back in 14th position, just a little bit off the pace of the front runners. Donnie is right now on the tail of the tandem of those front runners that had that lead draft going, so we will be watching also for the orange and green colors of Donnie Allison in the number 77 race car.
That's a new Harry Hite prepared car, their first race together. Allison said he thought his problem would be that he would lose the draft early in the race. Now the yellow has put him right on the tail end of that lead draft. So with 22 laps laps about to go into the book. The green flag is out, and we're back underway at Alabama International Speedway. Rick Wilson leads Richard Childress and Tim Richmond down into turn 1, and the charge is back on here at the world's fastest motor speedway. Wilson is down onto the apron. Right off the bat, Rick Wilson goes down low. Look out, everybody goes up top.
We've got a massive crash again. Well, no, check that. It's not massive. We had 2 other cars spin, and some outstanding race driving going on in the middle of the pack. There are 2 of our early leaders that look to be Bobby Allison and perhaps Darrell Waltrip. Somebody in the middle of the pack, just about at the location of the lead draft cars that we had been describing, got out of shape, and there were 2 other spinners in the middle of the pack.
Allison and Yarborough spinning and getting down into the grass, but they managed to get back up onto the racetrack and continue. The yellow is back out. It has been an absolute demolition derby here at Talladega today, and this time the key factor is 2 of the fastest cars in the field, 2 of the early leaders were involved in that mishap. It started in turn 1 when Rick Wilson went down on the low side of the racetrack. He was the leader. When the yellow flag disappeared and the green came back out, Wilson did not get through turn 1. He took it down low on the apron, ultimately got into the grass, and it's hard to speculate what goes through a driver's mind in that situation, Larry, but you can almost see the field, perhaps gun-shy from what had happened in turn 3 earlier, all shying up to the top of the track as they saw the dust down below where Wilson was, and I think they thought he might come back up the racetrack.
I think an excellent observation. When I looked up at the first point, when I saw the dust from Wilson, and there's Bobby Allison's car trailing the rear bumper. Bobby Allison's car with damage to the rear end part of that machine, and the bumper trailing along behind. There is the current leader, I believe, Richard Childress, followed by Tim Richmond. The safety car will be looking to pick up the leaders this lap around. I had begun to comment that when I first looked up after having noticed the dust from Rick Wilson down on the inside of the racetrack, I'm confident, Dave, that I saw at least 4 race cars sideways right in the middle of the banking, and several of the drivers did an excellent job avoiding those spinning cars, and I saw no contact with the outside retaining wall.
This is going to bring the leaders back on pit road. When we talk about the leaders, remember now we're talking at this moment about cars that are well back in the pack in the sense that it is your lead draft. Allison and Yarborough both on pit road and both with damage to their machines. There's the number 28 car, the Pole City Uno Buick, built by Haas Ellington, or check that, the Wrangler Pontiac. They have pulled the bumper off the automobile, the 5 racers automobile of Bobby Allison. The back bumper has been stripped away. It doesn't appear that the car's too badly damaged.
No, it doesn't. I just wonder how that will disrupt the aerodynamics of this race car. I understand we had Ned Jarrett standing by in the pits. Ned?
There appears to be nothing wrong with the front end of the car. As you mentioned, the back bumper is torn loose from the car. They're changing all 4 tires, checking the car over to be sure there's no sheet metal on the tires, and they have it serviced, and he's away. But you can see that the rear bumper is gone, but that should not hurt him too much. We'll try to get over here to Waddell Wilson and see what they do plan to do with the thing. Well, we'll have to come back to you in just a moment, Dave.
So the 5 racers Buick of Bobby Allison heads back out into the fray. Cale Yarborough has also been in for attention. We should be able to get the field back and intact and under green with 25 laps. That translates to 66.5 miles of this 500-mile battle in the book. We'll be back in just a moment. We're back at Alabama International Motor Speedway after the 4th caution flag of the day has slowed this field and kept our race average well below 100 miles an hour. What looked like it might be the fastest 500-mile race in history now threatens to become one of the slowest, but we're about to get back to 200-mile-an-hour action. A reminder, ESPN brings you North American Soccer League play each Saturday live all season long. Will the Cosmos repeat as Soccer Bowl champions? In action, the likes of all-time greats like Giorgio Chinaglia, the NASL's leading scorer last year, North American Player of the Year, goaltender Jack Brand, All-Stars Arno Steffenhagen and Mike Connell, top draft pick Joe Moroni, and Washington's Jim Brown, who scored an unbelievable goal to win an early season game. The NASL powers like the Cosmos, Seattle Sounders, Fort Lauderdale Strikers, Chicago Sting, and the Tampa Bay Rowdies. Great. NASL Soccer live each week on ESPN. Larry, we're about to get back to it here. We've shuffled the deck as far as the running order, and we've also got some cars that are damaged out there. What's that going to do?
Well, the leaders are peppered throughout the field. There's absolutely no order of running out there right now. Among the top contenders, pre-race style, who have damaged race cars, Dale Earnhardt, the defending national champion, severe aerodynamic disruption to the front of the race car. Cale Yarborough took somebody in the right side of the race car. He's got damage there. Car number 28, Bobby Allison, who sat on the pole as the fastest qualifier, has damage to the tail. Will it disrupt that car aerodynamically? We'll only have to wait and see. Car number 1, Buddy Baker, is having quite a raft of problems. They completed a windshield change as the green flag flies. We're under green and racing at race speed once again. Buddy Baker's crew replaced a windshield in just 55 seconds. But 2 or 3 laps later, while running under caution, they discovered they had some clutch problems. He's having a very difficult time getting into and out of the pit at any kind of speed whatsoever.
Ricky Rudd had the lead coming out of that yellow flag as a virtue of all of the pit stops, but that lead is being challenged down the backstretch. Bobby Allison and Dale Earnhardt have picked up right where they left off prior to the yellow flag. Allison, the leader, and Earnhardt in that number 2 position. There is the 2-car draft that earlier this week was recorded at over 205 miles an hour on this racetrack. Rudd is staying with them. Rick Wilson is 4th.
No way is Earnhardt's car going to be nearly as stable as it was when the car rolled off the race shop assembly line. You noted that as Dale went through the north bankings, the 3rd and 4th turns, as we now enter the 1st and 2nd turn on the last lap, he was not nearly as close to Bobby Allison as we are accustomed to seeing the cars draft. Normally they're less than a foot apart. You can see Earnhardt giving Allison a little bit of room. That's because Earnhardt doesn't know exactly what to expect. The flow of air over that blue and yellow number 2 is considerably disrupted from the way the car was built and intended to direct the flow of air. So Earnhardt, though he's running up the front, driving flat out at top speed, foot all the way to the floor, he's still being a little cautious, trying to find out exactly how that car is going to handle.
With 41 laps in the book of 188 to make up the race distance here, 109 miles down, it's ironic that 3 of those lead 4 cars were involved in the melee that brought out this most recent yellow flag. The car in 4th spot, Rick Wilson from Bartow, Florida, spun down low on the apron, and as he did so, he forced all the leaders up to the top of the track where they bumped and banged a little bit. Allison got into that. Cale Yarborough also suffered some sheet metal damage, and Earnhardt bent up the front of his car.
Wilson, the black car, 4th in line there of the leaders as they rocket down the backstretch. We are told from timing and scoring has lost at least 1, possibly 2 laps. He did have to pit for lengthy repairs during one of the caution flags, so though Rick Wilson, who qualified so well here this week as a young rookie, continues to run with the leaders, he is not among the leaders in the standings of the race.
Of 42 laps complete here in the Winston 500, 26 laps have been run under the yellow flag. The race speed being held down to below 100 miles an hour. A new 4th place car, Darrell Waltrip, has worked himself up into 4th position now as he tries to reel in that lead draft that is not getting away as we had thought they might. We have a retirement down on pit road. It looked like the number 50 machine pulling in. That's Bruce Hill getting some work. And also on the charge is Buddy Baker. Baker, 3rd in that pack right there, is moving up on Rick Wilson. Those are your 3rd, 4th, and 5th place automobiles. 3rd place is Ricky Rudd, 4th Rick Wilson. Here is your lead draft, and they indeed are beginning to open up a little bit of space. This is the draft that everybody talked about as the one that was capable of going over 205.
This is the one the rest of the drivers were concerned of. If there was any duo on the racetrack that the rest of the crew chiefs feared might break away from all of the other top contenders and threaten at least to make a shambles of this race for 1st and 2nd position, it was this one. And a lot of people, I think, breathed a sigh of relief when they saw the damage go to the nose of Dale Earnhardt's car. I'm sure they felt, well, that's history. No way will Earnhardt be able to tack in behind Bobby Allison and pull away from everybody, but Earnhardt's doing it, and they've opened up about a football field between themselves and the 3rd, 4th, and 5th place machines.
For those of you who might be new to the sport of stock car racing, when we talk about the draft, we're talking about the aerodynamics of the cars. When 2 cars hook up and run together like that, they're able to run faster than one car which has to beat its way through a 200-mile-an-hour wall of wind all by itself. When 2 cars can hook up together like that, they're capable of running faster than one car by itself. But in this case, it is significant that Ricky Rudd Bud is able to stay right with them. Buddy Baker has now moved up into 4th position. 5th is Rick Wilson. Baker had problems on his car with the clutch during the series of yellow flags, and he was having trouble getting back up to speed on the restarts, but this time he's right in that lead draft.
As you watch the lead draft, the only problem that is on the mind, or the only potential problem on the mind of the drivers who are in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th place in the draft, they have to be very careful to watch their temperature gauge on the race car. These cars do have a tendency to overheat when they're tucked right in behind the driver in front. You see Earnhardt moving down to the inside. He's probably noted the temperature has begun to creep up just a little bit. He needs to move out into the wind. Even though he gives up speed, he slows down himself and Allison, and now he gets some fresh air and hopefully cool the engine down. In this case, Earnhardt does not look like he's going to be able to get around Allison. He would have hoped to get around to stay right on Allison's back fender, but he didn't get quite enough of the draft. Maybe it was that disruption in the front of the race car. Maybe the air isn't flowing across that car smoothly enough to allow him to accelerate from behind another and take advantage of the draft.
And Earnhardt can't get back into line. He goes from 2nd all the way back to 5th in that draft, which is already overlapping slower cars. It is Bobby Allison leading. Darrell Waltrip, we incorrectly identified him as Ricky Rudd. That is Darrell Waltrip. Those cars are similarly painted in 1981. This is the Dew crew, the Mountain Dew automobile of Waltrip in the 2nd spot, with Buddy Baker riding 3rd. Rick Wilson back in 4th spot, the rookie from Bartow, Florida. Ran so well at Daytona a year ago. And now back in 5th is the reigning Winston Cup champion, Dale Earnhardt from Dooley, North Carolina, in his Dale Inman prepared machine. We've got a car going behind the wall. That is going to be the number 6 car of Joe Ruttman, who had moved up in the standings by virtue of those yellow flags.
Well, Ruttman had qualified for the 15th starting position this week. He surprised a few people by qualifying that well. He makes his home in Upland, California right now. He is the son of the 1952 winner of the Indianapolis 500-mile race, Troy Ruttman.
Earlier, the 2-car teams in this race had all been reported retired. Bud Moore's 2 cars, Benny Parsons and number 9 Bill Elliott, were out as a result of that early crash. The Reynolds Needham Racing team, the Skoll Bandit team, comprised of Stan Barrett and Harry Gant, both were damaged in that crash and retired. Richard Petty was knocked out by that crash. Kyle Petty has been in and out, and that car is back out on the racetrack now, so Petty is back in the fray.
Yeah, it's been a long day for Kyle, watching Daddy crash early in the race, and he was running very close to Father Richard when the crash occurred. And Dave, as you have pointed out, they've had all kinds of problems with the number 42, the legendary number 42 today. But Kyle trying to pick up valuable experience as, again, we look at the lead pack rocket shipping down the backstretch. This 4,000-foot strip of asphalt that's just 48 feet wide. There's a 12-foot apron on the inside of the racetrack, but you don't want to be down there. If you're down on the apron, you're in trouble. And Buddy Baker in the Uno-sponsored car number 1 car has moved back to the front.
We've got a 7-car draft, a 7-car freight train hooking up front with Buddy Baker, the winningest driver ever on this track, currently out in front. And Cale Yarborough has overcome the front-end damage that he suffered in that earlier shunt up in turn 2, right about where they are right now on the racetrack. And Yarborough has moved up into 4th position in that pack. He's nailed right to the rear deck of Darrell Waltrip as they go thundering down. And we had a lap just a couple of laps back at 199.09 miles per hour. So the aerodynamics seem to be quite intact. Interesting point, Neil Bonnet, who is out of the race now, says the difference between 199 and 205 is just unbelievable. There's Petty. He is back out. That is Kyle Petty. Daddy Richard is out of the fray. And Kyle, by the way, has dropped a valve, so he's going to just go as fast as he can out there.
Well, no contact with the outside retaining wall.
This is going to bring the leaders back on pit road. When we talk about the leaders, remember now we're talking at this moment about cars that are well back in the pack in the sense that it is your lead draft. Allison and Yarborough both on pit road and both with damage to their machines. There's the number 28 car, the Pole City Uno Buick, built by Haas Ellington, or check that, the Wrangler Pontiac. They have pulled the bumper off the automobile, the 5 Racers automobile of Bobby Allison. The back bumper has been stripped away. It doesn't appear that the car's too badly damaged.
No, it doesn't. I just wonder how that will disrupt the aerodynamics of this race car. I understand we had Ned Jarrett standing by in the pits. Ned?
There appears to be nothing wrong with the front end of the car. As you mentioned, the back bumper is torn loose from the car. They're changing all 4 tires, checking the car over to be sure there's no sheet metal on the tires, and they have it serviced, and he's away. But you can see that the rear bumper is gone, but that should not hurt him too much. We'll try to get over here to Waddell Wilson and see what they do plan to do with the thing. Well, we'll have to come back to you in just a moment, Dave.
So the 5 racers Buick of Bobby Allison heads back out into the fray. Cale Yarborough has also been in for attention. We should be able to get the field back and intact and under green with 25 laps. That translates to 66.5 miles of this 500-mile battle in the book. We'll be back in just a moment. We're back at Alabama International Motor Speedway after the 4th caution flag of the day has slowed this field and kept our race average well below 100 miles an hour. What looked like it might be the fastest 500-mile race in history now threatens to become one of the slowest, but we're about to get back to 200-mile-an-hour action. A reminder, ESPN brings you North American Soccer League play each Saturday live all season long. Will the Cosmos repeat as Soccer Bowl champions? In action, the likes of all-time greats like Giorgio Chinaglia, the NASL's leading scorer last year, North American Player of the Year, goaltender Jack Brand. All-stars Arno Steffenhagen and Mike Connell. Top draft pick Joe Maroney and Washington's Jim Brown, who scored an unbelievable goal to win an early season game. The NASL powers like the Cosmos, Seattle Sounders, Fort Lauderdale Strikers, Chicago Sting, and the Tampa Bay Rowdies. Great NASL soccer live each week on ESPN. Larry, we're about to get back to it here. We've shuffled the deck as far as the running order, and we've also got some cars that are damaged out there. What's that going to do?
Well, the leaders are peppered throughout the field. There's absolutely no order of running out there right now. Among the top contenders pre-race style who have damaged race cars, Dale Earnhardt, the defending national champion, severe aerodynamic disruption to the front of the race car. Cale Yarborough took somebody in the right side of the race car. He's got damage there. Car number 28, Bobby Allison, who sat on the pole as the fastest qualifier, has damage to the tail. Will it disrupt that car aerodynamically? We'll only have to wait and see. Car number 1, Buddy Baker, is having quite a raft of problems. They completed a windshield change as the green flag flies. We're under green and racing at race speed once again. Buddy Baker's crew replaced a windshield in just 55 seconds. But 2 or 3 laps later, while running under caution, they discovered they had some clutch problems. He's having a very difficult time getting into and out of the pit at any kind of speed whatsoever.
Ricky Rudd had the lead coming out of that yellow flag as a virtue of all of the pit stops, but that lead is being challenged down the backstretch. Bobby Allison and Dale Earnhardt have picked up right where they left off prior to the yellow flag. Allison the leader and Earnhardt in that number 2 position. There is the 2-car draft that earlier this week was recorded at over 205 miles an hour on this racetrack. Rudd is staying with them. Rick Wilson is 4th.
No way is Earnhardt's car going to be nearly as stable as it was when the car rolled off the race shop assembly line. You noted that as Dale went through the north bankings, the 3rd and 4th turns, as we now enter the 1st and 2nd turn on the last lap, he was not nearly as close to Bobby Allison as we are accustomed to seeing the cars draft. Normally they're less than a foot apart. You can see Earnhardt giving Allison a little bit of room. That's because Earnhardt doesn't know exactly what to expect. The flow of air over that blue and yellow number 2 is considerably disrupted from the way the car was built and intended to direct the flow of air. So Earnhardt, though he's running up the front, driving flat out at top speed, foot all the way to the floor, he's still being a little cautious, trying to find out exactly how that car is going to handle.
With 41 laps in the book of 188 to make up the race distance here, 109 miles down, it's ironic that 3 of those lead 4 cars were involved in the melee that brought out this most recent yellow flag. The car in 4th spot, Rick Wilson from Bartow, Florida, spun down low on the apron, and as he did so, he forced all the leaders up to the top of the track where they bumped and banged a little bit. Allison got into that. Cale Yarborough also suffered some sheet metal damage, and Earnhardt bent up the front of his car.
Wilson, the black car, 4th in line there of the leaders as they rocket down the backstretch. We are told from timing and scoring has lost at least 1, possibly 2 laps. He did have to pit for lengthy repairs during one of the caution flags, so though Rick Wilson, who qualified so well here this week as a young rookie, continues to run with the leaders, he is not among the leaders in the standings of the race.
Of 42 laps complete here in the Winston 500, 26 laps have been run under the yellow flag. The race speed being held down to below 100 miles an hour. A new 4th place car, Darrell Waltrip, has worked himself up into 4th position now as he tries to reel in that lead draft that is not getting away as we had thought they might. We have a retirement down on pit road. It looked like the number 50 machine pulling in. That's Bruce Hill getting some work. And also on the charge is Buddy Baker. Baker, third in that pack right there, is moving up on Rick Wilson. Those are your third, fourth, and fifth place automobiles. Third place is Ricky Rudd, fourth Rick Wilson. Here is your lead draft, and they indeed are beginning to open up a little bit of space. This is the draft that everybody talked about as the one that was capable of going over 205.
This is the one the rest of the drivers were concerned of. If there was any duo on the racetrack that the rest of the crew chiefs feared might break away from all of the other top contenders and threaten at least to make a shambles of this race for first and second position, it was this one. And a lot of people, I think, breathed a sigh of relief when they saw the damage go to the nose of Dale Earnhardt's car. I'm sure they felt, well, that's history. No way will Earnhardt be able to tack in behind Bobby Allison and pull away from everybody, but Earnhardt's doing it, and they've opened up about a football field between themselves and the third, fourth, and fifth place machines.
For those of you who might be new to the sport of stock car racing, when we talk about the draft, we're talking about the aerodynamics of the cars. When two cars hook up and run together like that, they're able to run faster than one car, which has to beat its way through a 200-mile-an-hour wall of wind all by itself. When two cars can hook up together like that, they're capable of running faster than one car by itself. But in this case, it is significant that Ricky Rudd is able to stay right with them. Buddy Baker has now moved up into fourth position. Fifth is Rick Wilson. Baker had problems on his car with the clutch during the series of yellow flags, and he was having trouble getting back up to speed on the restarts. But this time, he's right in that lead draft.
As you watch the lead draft, the only problem that is on the mind, or the only potential problem on the mind of the drivers who are in second, third, and fourth place in the draft, they have to be very careful to watch their temperature gauge on the race car. These cars do have a tendency to overheat when they're tucked right in behind the driver in front. You see Earnhardt moving down to the inside. He's probably noted the temperature has begun to creep up just a little bit. He needs to move out into the wind. Even though he gives up speed, he slows down himself and Allison, and now he gets some fresh air and hopefully cool the engine down. In this case, Earnhardt does not look like he's going to be able to get around Allison. He would have hoped to get around to stay right on Allison's back fender, but he didn't get quite enough of the draft. Maybe it was that disruption in the front of the race car. Maybe the air isn't flowing across that car smoothly enough to allow him to accelerate from behind another and take advantage of the draft.
And Earnhardt can't get back into line. He goes from second all the way back to fifth in that draft, which is already overlapping slower cars. It is Bobby Allison leading. Darrell Waltrip, we incorrectly identified him as Ricky Rudd. That is Darrell Waltrip. Those cars are similarly painted in 1981. This is the Dew crew, the Mountain Dew automobile of Waltrip in the second spot, with Buddy Baker riding third. Rick Wilson back in fourth spot, the rookie from Bartow, Florida. Ran so well at Daytona a year ago. And now back in fifth is the reigning Winston Cup champion, Dale Earnhardt from Dooley, North Carolina, in his Dale Inman prepared machine. We've got a car going behind the wall. That is going to be the number 6 car of Joe Ruttman, who had moved up in the standings by virtue of those yellow flags.
Well, Ruttman had qualified for the 15th starting position this week. He surprised a few people by qualifying that well. He makes his home in Upland, California right now. He is the son of the 1952 winner of the Indianapolis 500-mile race, Troy Ruttman.
Earlier, the 2-car teams in this race had all been reported retired. Bud Moore's 2 cars, and Benny Parsons and number 9 Bill Elliott, were out as a result of that early crash. The Reynolds Needham Racing team, the Skoll Bandit team, comprised of Stan Barrett and Harry Gant, both were damaged in that crash and retired. Richard Petty was knocked out by that crash. Kyle Petty has been in and out and in and out, and that car is back out on the racetrack now, so Petty is back in the fray.
Yeah, it's been a long day for Kyle, watching Daddy crash early in the race, and he was running very close to Father Richard when the crash occurred. And Dave, as you have pointed out, they've had all kinds of problems with the number 42, the legendary number 42 today. But Kyle trying to pick up valuable experience as, again, we look at the lead pack rocket shipping down the backstretch. This 4,000-foot strip of asphalt that's just 48 feet wide. There's a 12-foot apron on the inside of the racetrack, but you don't want to be down there. If you're down on the apron, you're in trouble. And Buddy Baker in the Uno-sponsored car number 1 car has moved back to the front.
We've got a 7-car draft, a 7-car freight train hooking up front with Buddy Baker, the winningest driver ever on this track, currently out in front. And Cale Yarborough has overcome the front end damage that he suffered in that earlier shunt up in turn 2, right about where they are right now on the racetrack. And Yarborough has moved up into 4th position in that pack. He's nailed right to the rear deck of Darrell Waltrip as they go thundering down. And we had a lap just a couple of laps back at 199.09 miles per hour. So the aerodynamics seem to be quite intact. Interesting point, Neil Bonnet, who is out of the race now, says the difference between 199 and 205 is just unbelievable. There's Petty. He is back out. That is Kyle Petty. Daddy Richard is out of the fray. And Kyle, by the way, has dropped a valve, so he's going to just go as fast as he can out there and try to score some points here in Winston Cup racing.
The leaders, as they move around this racetrack, have got to have a lot going on in their mind right now. The number of caution flags that we've had in the early stages of this race has to have really changed all of the strategy. Now, they can go about 35 laps normally on a full load of fuel, and that is the primary reason for pitting in a 500-mile race featuring Grand National stock cars. The tires will go just about as far as the teams would like to have them go. They have to stop for fuel at least every 35 laps. As we look at the battle for 9th and 10th between Mike Alexander and Terry Labonte, two of the real young lions, and young lions they are in Grand National stock car racing. They're still on the lead lap with this lead pack, which is now coming through the tri-oval to complete lap number 51.
Alexander and Labonte racing for 9th and 10th spot. These guys are squabbling over the top 8 positions, as you can see, with Buddy Baker out front, Dale Earnhardt in that number 2 spot, Darrell Waltrip tucking in 3rd, Cale Yarborough is 4th, Rick Wilson is 5th. Bobby Allison has been up at the head of that draft and has now fallen all the way back to the back. But the point is that when you're anywhere in that lead draft, you have that potential to go for the front anytime you want to. You can use that slingshot pass. Here's Waltrip pulling down on the inside. Out of the draft, Yarborough will try to come with him. It is Darrell Waltrip and the Dew Crew machine going side by side with Earnhardt in the 2nd spot. The big Buddy Baker at 6 foot 5 inches and well over 200 pounds puts that big right foot down and says nothing to it. And he holds off that charge. Waltrip out of the draft gets drop kicked all the way back to about 5th spot. That's the way it works here at Alabama International, where the draft is so critical for these drivers. And can you imagine the nerve that it has to take to drive like that? Picture yourself out on the freeway when it's bumper to bumper and moving along at a snail's pace. Just speed that film up to about 200 miles an hour, and you've got some sensation of what it's like for these guys out there.
Well, Waltrip has had a great year so far. He's won 4 times on the Grand National Trail, more than any other driver. He's currently in 4th position in the point standings and 3rd in the money winnings. He is one of 5 drivers who have already won over $100,000 in the 1981 season. There are the leaders coming around turn number 4, coming down toward the start-finish line, past this throng of 100,000 plus. They're now moving to the tri-oval, which is banked about 17 to 18 degrees, and approaching the start-finish line, which is positioned past the tri-oval and near the entrance of the number 1 corner on this 2.66-mile speedway.
That 7-car draft has just put the 53rd lap of this race in the book. 141 miles complete, 135 laps or 359 miles still to come. And this is much more what we had anticipated in terms of the kind of action that we're going to see here in this Winston 500. We've got 7 cars running in that lead draft.
You know, you get the feeling, and I think the drivers would never admit to it, but you get the feeling that maybe these guys have collectively decided without communicating with one another that, boy, you know, we better just settle down, get about 50 or 60 good laps of this race under our belt, and then maybe we can go hard charging racing. They all seem to be running fast, but pretty calm right now. There's not a lot of darting around. They have to change positions periodically, as we mentioned, primarily because of the temperature of the engines as they're tucked behind one another. But they really seem to have settled down. They're all looking for that steady pace. Get this race underway, get going, and let's see who can come home to victory lane.
The up and down Petty Crew fortunes down again. Apparently the broken valve is going to take Kyle out of it. He is again reported as behind the wall and back in the garage. And that sounds like that's going to be terminal for Kyle Petty, who has been in and out of this race so far. A good point, I think, Larry, the fact that normally at this juncture in the event with a little over 100 miles in the record book, these guys would have been fully accustomed to that high speed, nearly 200-mile-an-hour draft for lap after lap. They would have the feel of the tempo of the race. They would begin to feel out each other and who has what capability, who can handle the turns. who's got the handle in the critical tri-oval part right there on the racetrack. It looks flat, but that part of the track is banked 18 degrees. Then here in turn one, they swoop up into the 33-degree banking, and the handling on the cars is absolutely critical. But because we have run 26 laps of this race under yellow, these guys are really just starting to get their bit in the teeth now with 55 laps complete.
You know, another factor that they have to have a firm hold on, particularly going into the final 100 miles of the race, is fuel mileage. Miles per gallon. How far can we go at top speed before we have to come in for a pit stop? And of course, with all the caution flags that we've had, the crews have not had an opportunity to check their fuel supply, to monitor just exactly how much are they using per lap. How far can they go? And Junior Johnson explained to me earlier today up and down pit road that can change dramatically during a race. The crews expect to get better mileage as the race wears on. That assumes that the driver will be able to get into enough high-speed drafts to pull off that throttle pedal just enough to save fuel. But at this point, everything has been scrambled. Nobody knows really what factors and variables they're working with.
I think it's appropriate time to give a call to that car that's in fourth place. Now, they're working slower traffic, so you've got a lapped automobile there as they work their way down the backstretch. The leader is Baker. Second is Earnhardt. In third is Cale Yarborough. And then about 5 or 6 car lengths back, just dropping back out of the frame, right there, Rick Wilson. He's from Bartow, Florida, and he's one of the rookies here. What a sparkling crew of rookies we have coming into this race. And I think Rick Wilson is certainly acquitting himself very well here today. He was a little concerned about his rookie status. Said earlier that he knew that he and Mike, referring to Mike Alexander, another rookie who qualified third fastest for this race, knew that they would have to keep their noses clean, that everybody would be watching them to see how they did in this race. Well, we've had cars spinning and crashing all over the racetrack. Wilson, one of the drivers who was involved, as he got down on the low side of the racetrack and spun and forced some of the leaders up, and they got bumped a little bit. There you see the damage on Earnhardt's car that resulted from that shunt. But now Wilson has settled down, and he's right there in fourth spot looking solid. Here is the 3-car lead draft. We had a total of 6 yellow flags so far, and 4 of those yellows came in the first 37 laps. Since then, it's been a good, clean race.
You know, we might make comment about Buddy Baker, Dale Earnhardt, and Darrell Waltrip battling with Bobby Allison. Now, they are also completely informed as to what the situation is by now. They have radio communications with their crew. The crew of each of those other 3 cars running up front has probably told their drivers, Buddy Baker, Dale Earnhardt, and Darrell Waltrip, look, Allison is a lap down. Let us tell you what he's trying to do. He's trying to beat you to the start-finish line every time around. So even though Bobby Allison is sweating it out more than the others and working hard, believe you me, Buddy Baker, Dale Earnhardt, and Darrell Waltrip, they're working hard too, because they want to keep Bobby Allison a lap down. It's almost like 3-on-1 right now.
Exactly right, because they would love to eliminate anybody they can from that lead draft. The ideal situation here would be for 2 of those cars to hook up and try to get away. Baker and Earnhardt have demonstrated the ability to do that on more than one occasion here today. They were the fastest in the draft in practice. Also, Earnhardt and Allison proved 205-mile-an-hour capability in the draft, but during the race itself, it's been Baker and Earnhardt who have been the most effective combination hooking up as a duo. They would like to do that. They'd like to get away and settle it between themselves, but believe me, Bobby Allison is having none of that, nor Darrell Waltrip or anybody else in that front pack.
You know, we might talk a little bit about Bobby Allison, Hueytown, Alabama. He is probably America's most active racing driver. Not only does he run a complete Grand National Circuit Series every year, but he travels across America visiting the grassroots racetracks from coast to coast. Week after week, he runs anywhere from 2 to 4 times a week. He'll run on a quarter-mile racetrack, a third-mile racetrack. He began his racing career about 20 years ago back in the Miami, Florida area. He is also one of the few drivers in Grand National stock car racing who has experience in open-wheeled super-modified type race cars. Bobby Allison has ascended to the position of the 3rd leading money winner of all time in Grand National racing. He has won over $2.7 million in Grand National competition.
Well, it was a year ago today that the 2 cars that are currently in positions 1 and 2, the red #1 of Buddy Baker and the blue and yellow #2 of Dale Earnhardt, and how appropriate that seems, finished 1-2 in this race, and Baker beat Earnhardt to the stripe by 3 feet. It was typical Talladega finish. We've seen it so many times here before, and it looks like we're going to have another one here today. This time there are 4 cars up there in the thick of it. Baker is your race leader, second in that draft. The second place car is Dale Earnhardt, the number 2 machine. The third place car is Darrell Waltrip. Fourth is Ricky Rudd. And in 5th spot, running almost a full lap behind, is Allison. Let me double check that. It is Donnie Allison who is running 5th. He is outside that lead draft. And then Bobby Allison, the leader in that draft, is 6th. I know that's perhaps a bit confusing as you can only watch the pack on your screen. But bear in mind that Bobby Allison is on the lap with the leaders. He is the full length of the racetrack behind them, however, at this moment, running on the racetrack in 6th position. And the key for him, we'll continue to emphasize, is that he must stay in front of Buddy Baker. Then, if a yellow flag comes out, he quickly circulates the racetrack. Oh, we've got a yellow. We've got the yellow right now. The word is that Darrell Waltrip has slowed dramatically, dropped out of that lead draft. Allison ahead of Baker, and there's the magic, Larry.
He has done it. Bobby Allison has pulled the late race coup here, which will put him back among the leaders. And you know, you can't see it on your screen, but if we could superimpose the face, I think you're going to see a smile that is as wide as this racetrack is long. Bobby Allison has got to be saying, boy, the good Lord was with me today. I worked really hard the last 15 laps, and it really paid off.
Well, perhaps he's just looking at it from the standpoint that he's just getting back his dues because it was such bad luck that cost him the lap in the first place. I'll tell you one thing, Larry, that smile is mirrored in perhaps 50,000 faces around this racetrack. We've got another capacity crowd at Alabama International, and believe me, if there's anybody out there that they like, it's this guy right here. Bobby Allison, the leader of the Alabama gang from Hueytown, Alabama, has done just exactly what he had to do and demonstrated that he has the car to do it. He can run anywhere on the racetrack. He's got horsepower. He stayed in front of Baker. The yellow came out for Waltrip, and now Bobby Allison's going to be right back in the thick of it.
This is a sport in this particular kind of automobile racing where the drivers, well, their legends are almost bigger than they are. And you're right, there's a tremendous amount of loyalty among the throng of fans that follows every one of these drivers. It's a real family affair coming to a Grand National race, and they're real serious about their support of their various drivers.
As we go under yellow for debris on the backstretch, we are under yellow, and the situation is this. Buddy Baker is still your leader. The second place car is Darrell Waltrip. The second place car is Dale Earnhardt. Moving up to third is Ricky Rudd. Darrell Waltrip's situation in doubt as he had problems just as the yellow came out. And perhaps most significantly, Bobby Allison is right back among the leaders. We're setting up for a finish, and we'll be right back. At Alabama International Motor Speedway, the Winston 500, we are prepared for a 30-lap dash to the checkered flag when we come back under green, and that field is preparing to do that right now as they move out of turn 2 and down the back chute at a leisurely 80 miles an hour. In just a moment, those speeds will escalate, approaching 200 miles an hour. The field has been replenished during this yellow for debris on the track, and they should be able to go the distance now at full speed. ESPN is your ticket to exciting top-ranked boxing every Thursday evening. Your Total Sports Network has joined forces with promoter Bob Arum to present the very best young talent in the fight game. Catch rising stars like Tony Ayala, Quick Tillis, Bobby Chase, and Dwight Braxton, and follow their climb toward bouts with the established contenders like the former world light heavyweight champ Mike Rossman, just one of many titleists who have already fought on ESPN. See the world's finest young fighters Thursday nights when ESPN presents live top-ranked boxing.
To give you an idea how fast the action is, remember the pole qualifying speed of Buddy Baker was 195+ miles per hour. The last green flag lap before the caution flew was recorded at 196.6 miles per hour. So after 159 laps, or 422 miles, they are running faster than the fastest qualifier of the race.
Well, I'll tell you what, the draft really has its effect, and that's another vivid example of it right there. We are coming down to a green flag with Buddy Baker in the lead. The four-time winner of Alabama International Motor Speedway is looking for that flicker of green that will put this field back to racing speed. Ricky Rudd is second. Bobby Allison rides in the third spot as they go thundering down into turn number 1. We have had 2 developments while we were away. The Waltrip problem was diagnosed as a clutch difficulty. That was right at the yellow flag. Allison going around Baker there to take the lead. Now remember, let's update you on 3 stories. Allison is back with the leaders. He has made up the virtually entire lap that he had lost. So it is now Buddy Baker moving around Bobby Allison and taking the lead. And Ricky Rudd is right there in the thick of it. Those 3 cars are all running together with 29 laps to go, coming toward a finish. Waltrip, when that yellow flag came out, simultaneously went to the pits. It was unrelated. The yellow, oh, Baker almost bumped Allison as they came down into the tri-oval. Buddy looks over at Bobby and says, hey, we do this all the time, don't we? This is fun. These guys are something. The other dramatic development during that pit stop, a transmission problem for Dale Earnhardt. That has put him a lap down. As the yellow came out, Waltrip went into the pits with problems, and Earnhardt, as they came out of the pits after his routine stop during the yellow, could not get the car back into gear. He had to come back into the pits. So Earnhardt, who has run so well throughout this race today, now with less than 30 laps to go, has been hit by mechanical problems, and that's got to be a big disappointment for him.
The sentimental favorite of that trio has got to be Ricky Rudd, the 3rd place car among the leaders. Again, the 2 front cars are Buddy Baker in the red number 1 and the black and silver number 28 of Bobby Allison, running in 3rd position in the race. As we look at 4th, 5th, and 6th positions, there's Darrell Waltrip in car number 11 going by. He lost some time in the pits, but it looks like he has gathered up speed to make another run at the front 3 cars, and there are the front 3 cars. The 3rd one in line, young Ricky Rudd, driving for one of the finest teams on the trail, but he has never won a Grand National stock car race, and a lot of people think he's due, and maybe today is just that day.
Well, Darrell Waltrip now has his work cut out for him.
And there goes Rudd, Dave.
Beautiful move right underneath Buddy Baker, taking over 2nd spot. Allison is your leader. Now Rudd showing in 2nd spot with Baker falling back to 3rd. There is Donnie Allison. Allison is your 5th place competitor, and as you can see, he has dropped down low on the track, and apparently the attrition that goes with 500-mile motor races is going to take the measure of this man today. We would anticipate that he will be coming to pit road. A big disappointment for the Harry Hyde crew. Allison watching the leaders disappear as Donnie pulls on pit road, but Bobby carries the colors for the Alabama gang. Bobby takes the lead. He's got Rudd in 2nd spot and Baker riding 3rd. Waltrip, as we started to point out, is now a matter of just, maybe 6 or 8 car lengths behind that lead draft. If he can pull back up and get into that lead draft, he could be a factor at the finish. There's Baker down to the inside, and now, Larry, they really start to feel each other out, don't they?
Yeah, they do, and they should have a pretty good beat as to exactly where the best place on the racetrack is for their individual car. They just put a lap on Dale Earnhardt as Donnie Allison comes back out in that green and orange number 77 machine. This is the team that crashed at Daytona earlier this year. They were really hoping to do well at this massive 2.66-mile racetrack today to sort of make up for that. There are the 3 leaders again. Bobby Allison again has moved to the vanguard. Buddy Baker, who has won here more often than anybody else, seems to be in the best position right now. He has spent a lot of time watching Bobby Allison. He's not had to work quite as hard as Bobby in the past 15 laps. And Buddy seems to be able to go around Bobby just about whenever he wants to. Ricky Rudd is showing some late race speed here. It makes you wonder, maybe this youngster has been saving something all day.
If nothing else, win, lose, or draw, Ricky Rudd, the youngster, is certainly getting some valuable experience here. With 164 of 188 laps in the book, Rudd is working with the leaders, and right there is Darrell Waltrip. Waltrip has roared up into contention, and I think that establishes him as a very strong contender, because remember, he had to break out of a pack and run by himself for 5 or 6 laps in the draft. That's a difficult thing to do, but Waltrip has managed to run down that lead draft. Earnhardt came with him, undoubtedly helped him in that task. Earnhardt, though, several laps down, running for points here. Baker goes to the lead, and look at Waltrip come right with him. Waltrip is really flexing his muscles here. It is Baker, Allison, then Waltrip, now Rudd, and keep in mind that Dale Earnhardt, who has been a familiar face in that lead draft, is now a couple of laps down.
Let's also not lose sight of the fact that this is a very prestigious race on the annual Grand National Trail. it is probably rivaled only by races that take place at the Daytona International Speedway. These guys all want to win this one very much, and you think back of some of the slam-bang, spectacular finishes that we have had at Daytona over the past few years, then modify that with the 3-foot finish difference between first and second of a year ago here at Talladega, and boy, I'll tell you, the scene is set for an absolutely dramatic finish.
Baker going to the inside. Waltrip had a notion on the outside, but decided if Buddy was going to go low, he better not try 3 abreast. And so Baker goes inside Allison. Allison doorpost to doorpost. Boy, what a battle. Waltrip hanging on to third. Ricky Rudd is tenaciously glued to his rear deck and enjoying the best seat in the house for some of the best racing on the tour is Dale Earnhardt. Even though he's several laps down, he'd like to be around at the finish of this thing. Allison back out front. We've got 167 laps in the book. They are working 168. We have 20 laps of this kind of action left. 4 drivers are going to decide it among themselves. And when you try to pick a winner out of that pack, your challenge is a formidable one. The leader, Bobby Allison, currently on top of the Grand National standings. Buddy Baker, who has won at this racetrack more than any other driver. Darrell Waltrip with more victories this year than anybody else. And Ricky Rudd losing 3 or 4 car lengths there, but still very much a part of that lead draft, trying to upset them all and become the young driver who emerges at Talladega.
In a situation like this, as we get very close to the end of the race, the term and the characteristic of aggression becomes a real factor. At this point, as you can see, these cars are reasonably closely matched in terms of performance. And you know, aggression is a strange word in an automobile racer's vocabulary. There's a very thin line between being over-aggressive and reckless and simply being an aggressive driver. But when it gets right down to it, anything is allowed when you're driving a race car, short of colliding with another driver if you're going for victory.
I think if you were going to pick somebody out of that field who has experience in just that kind of finish, you'd have to give a nod to Darrell Waltrip. Darrell Waltrip is a guy who he has kind of skated along that fine line in the minds of some of these drivers, Larry. He has on occasion perhaps even stepped across the line in the minds of some guys when they come down on that last lap. He's made the move that perhaps was just a bit beyond what would be accepted as the norm, but his attitude is, hey, the checkered flag is for the guy who wins it. I'm out there to try to do it. If anybody in this field got my nod for that last lap aggression, I think it would be Darrell Waltrip.
Yeah, I buy that, and I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to kind of cop out a little bit. Rather than saying I think so-and-so is going to win, I'm going to go with a little bit of sentimentality. See the young man making the move for the lead right now? That young guy is going to win a race, and he's going to win it sometime soon. I'm kind of hoping it's today.
I'll tell you what, if it's today, the Ricky Rudd crew is going to, the Chesapeake, Virginia folks, the Gatorade Olds team, are going to raise the roof on this speedway because that would be a big one to win. Where can you imagine, perhaps aside Daytona, coming up with a victory that would be more spectacular for a first win than here at Talladega, Alabama, the world's fastest motor speedway? We have put the 170th lap in the book. 18 laps to go as this field thunders around. Keep in mind that the 5th car in that draft is Dale Earnhardt. He was in the lead draft all day long. Transmission problems just 10 laps ago have dropped him a full 5 laps down. There is one other car on the lead lap. That is Donnie Allison. He had to make an unscheduled pit stop just a few moments ago, as you saw, and that pit stop has knocked him out of an opportunity to be one of 5 cars going for the finish here. Instead, it will be a 4-car battle, and that finish is going to be typical Talladega with 4 guys coming off turn 4, thundering down to the stripe, and then it's just a matter of who's got the most hair right here through the tri-oval, which will be the jumping off point for that finish coming up now in just 19 laps.
And it's a tricky part of the racetrack. We've mentioned that several times today, but I don't think we've developed it. You come rocketing off of those high banks, and it's like a manhole cover rolling down the street. Then the surface underneath you flattens out, and it's like a frisbee. The car just sits right down on the ground, and it does all sorts of strange gyrations. It's not nearly as stable as it flattens out on the racetrack as it is on the 33-degree bank corners.
Also a factor at this moment, and very much in the minds of these drivers, has to be that issue of mechanical reliability. Is the car strong? Is something going to go wrong in the late moments? These cars have all been beaten now for 171 laps, which translates to 454 miles at speeds of approaching 200 miles an hour. And oh, look at Baker. Baker's swirling a little bit as they come down through that tricky tri-oval area and head for turn one. And that could be a premonition, because if that car won't handle through there, he's not going to be able to make the move that he wants to on the last lap. And Allison took advantage of that to open up about 3, 4, maybe 5 car lengths there for just a moment. They've got to be thinking about what might go wrong with the car. What's this with Allison? All the way down to the inside now, Larry. They're using every bit of racetrack.
What a strange move, and you just wonder if that might have been a little bit of a psych job. Bobby Allison, almost like he was getting ready to retire from the race, but darted right back up in front of the cars barreling down right behind him, held him off, and he holds on to the lead for this lap. We have completed 172, working on 173 this time around. What that means is that we have 15 laps left. That really is a lot of time. It's like being in a pro football game when you get the 2-minute signal. It doesn't sound like much time on the clock, but it is a long time in point of fact in regards to the length of the contest. 15 or 16 laps is a lot of time to plot strategy. And really what's going on right now is these drivers know how many more laps they have to go, and they're all just setting up for the final lap. That's what it's come down to. 15 laps, about 12 or 13 minutes of the second to the last lap of the race, and then the last lap about 45 to 48 seconds of foot to the floor, turn left, drive hard, and hope for the best.
It's kind of like standing up there on the high board, you know, the high diving board, waiting for that moment when you're going to jump off, because it's all got to happen on the last lap. Everything that goes before is just preliminary. It's that last lap when you make the jump, commit yourself to the move, and go for it. We'll be back for that spectacular finish in just a moment.
ESP Racing from Spain and South Africa.
Is at Talladega. 5 cars at approaching 200 miles an hour down the back chute, setting up for a finish in this, the 12th Winston 500. The 2 men on the point. Buddy Baker on the inside of the red number 1, Bobby Allison on the outside, the silver and black number 28. They've both tasted victory here at Alabama International. In fact, Buddy Baker is trying to become the only man ever to win 5 times on this racetrack. He has already won 4, and nobody else can make that claim. They have battled like this all day long, and now with 175 laps in the book, we are just 13 laps away from a finish. And look at them. They look like they're tied together, door post to door post.
Well, we probably would be remiss as we look at the 2 leaders side by side, just inches apart. That's Buddy Baker on the inside and Bobby Allison on the outside. We would probably be remiss if we didn't remember some of the great previous winners of this race. Here comes young Ricky Rudd going down to the high side, almost, or the low side, almost down on the apron, and Rudd flexes his muscles. He moves into the lead. We're about to comment about some of the previous winners. Pete Hamilton, the winner of the first race in 1970. Donnie Allison, who's been a part of the story here today in 72. David Pearson won the first of 3 in a row in 1972. Buddy Baker, a 3-time winner, 75, 76, and 80. Darrell Waltrip, who certainly has a chance today, was the 77 winner. Cal Yarborough winning in 78, and Bobby Allison, the 1979 winner.
I'll tell you what, that kid's strutting his stuff. Ricky Rudd has just romped and stomped around 2 of the all-time legends in stock car racing, Buddy Baker and Bobby Allison, and he has put his number 88 car, the Gatorade Oldsmobile, right out front. Now Baker and Allison hook up, and here comes the draft right back on the inside. They're feeling each other out. They're showing off a little bit. They're seeing who's got the handle on what part of the racetrack. There is Ricky Rudd's crew, led by the crew chief, Bob Yates, Robert Yates, and boy, what a thrill it would be for them after starting 10th today if they could pull off the victory. 176 laps are in the book. They are preparing to complete lap 177, and there is not a sitting person in the house. A crowd approaching 100,000, all on their feet, and well, I'll tell you what, it'd be hard to pick a favorite as far as the crowd is concerned here. Look at Allison and Baker. That, I'll tell you what, that is just marvelous driving after the kind of distance that they've had to go here. The concentration that it takes to run that close for that long is just remarkable. There's that Allison move again, down on the low side.
He must feel as though he's got some advantage. The car must feel real comfortable to him down there. You know, there are a lot of ways of having advantages in this race. Some of these guys have just a few more horsepower underneath the hood, and they have now found the places on the racetrack where they can get an advantage. A couple of these guys are at least tremendous athletes in the hand-eye coordination area, and that gives them their advantage. There's Bobby Allison going back to the inside of Buddy Baker, and very interestingly, Dave, they have opened up a little bit of distance between the two green cars. The inside car is Waltrip. The one on the outside was Ricky Rudd. There's about 5 or 6 car lengths now between first and second and third and fourth.
Keep in mind that in theory anyway, when you get out there and run side by side, it slows you down. 2 cars side by side are not as effective in terms of drafting, and so perhaps as Waltrip and Rudd got to dicing over third spot there, it let Allison and Baker hook up. You know what they'd like to do. They'd like to get the 2 of them away and settle it between them. A speculation perhaps on the Allison moves that we're seeing down the back chute as he continually runs way down on the inside of the backstretch. We'll remember that a year ago when Buddy Baker beat Dale Earnhardt, the 5th man in this pack, 5 laps down, but still right on hand to watch the show. When Baker beat Earnhardt by 3 feet to the line, he made the pass going into turn 3 and then held him off down to the wire. So perhaps Allison is thinking that the backstretch is going to be the key, that that's where the move has to be made on the last lap, that in fact you can hold off a drafting driver who tries to slingshot around the outside here at Talladega, and in fact it is going into 3 and not coming out of 4 where the key will be. There is the Uno crew of number 1 Buddy Baker, headed up by Haas Ellington, one of the legends in car and engine building. Boy, what a victory it would be here for him if he gets his 5th at this racetrack.
Just another day at work. You can tell they're going at it like a businessman would be taking phone calls, checking out their records, checking out the charts, and just doing their job.
To reset the situation, if you've just joined us, your timing was superb. We are now 180 laps into the 188th lap. Winston 500, the 12th running of this race at Alabama International Speedway. It has been a yellow flag marred event, an event that in pre-race speculation was expected to perhaps be the fastest 500 miles in the history of auto racing. It is indeed going to be a rather slow race in terms of average speed because of a flurry of 6 yellow flags, 4 of them coming in the very early running of the race. But now it has stabilized. We're into the final laps with Bobby Allison, the leader, Buddy Baker in 2nd spot. The 3rd place car is Ricky Rudd. 4th is Darrell Waltrip. The car that is 5th in the draft, Dale Earnhardt, number 2 in the Wrangler Pontiac, is in fact 5 laps down and is not in the lead lap.
And if indeed you did join us late, we also might remind you that some of the top contenders are not in the event. They were eliminated early on. Harry Gant, who has 2 second-place finishes, as we look at Judy Allison, Bobby's wife, scoring for her husband, keeping track of what's going on to the racetrack. Benny Parsons also eliminated early by a crash. Richard Petty and Neil Bonnet among the pre-race favorites who did not have an opportunity to participate in this rousing tussle for the final now 7 laps of this year's version, the running of the Winston 500.
Buddy Baker and Bobby Allison have been swapping the lead back and forth since we went back under green here with this lead 4-car draft. Rudd held it once during the late laps of this race. Waltrip was impressive in catching up with this draft, but having caught them has not been able to go to the front. Whether or not he's waiting his opportunity or whether in fact he just doesn't have the steam, that's a matter of speculation that will be decided 6 laps from now.
You know, another observation, and he'll probably make a liar out of me 1 lap after I mention this, but I've been watching Dale Earnhardt, and I got a feeling that Earnhardt is really playing the gentleman's role in what's going on right now. He has been with the lead draft. There is Elliott Forbes Robinson, the sporty car type who's been out there running among them all day long. He's moved up to the top 15 for the last half of the race and looks like his day is over. We're commenting that Earnhardt has been with the lead draft, and I know he has the ability to dice and do passing, but I have the feeling he knows he has no opportunity to win this race. He wants to stay with the lead draft to perhaps pick up a couple of other positions back in the pack, but he has not jeopardized any of our 4 leaders by running up alongside of them.
The signal has just been given. Harold Kinder has flashed to the field. 5 laps to go. 183 laps are in the book. These Grand National superstars of Winston Cup racing have hurtled and thundered around this racetrack. They've spun, they've tagged the wall, they've blown engines. They've done everything imaginable out here today, and it has sorted itself down to this. With less than 5 laps to go, Buddy Baker goes to the inside of Bobby Allison, and they shuffle that lead. Can you imagine the number of lead changes that this race record will record? There must have been a dozen of them in the last 5 laps. Baker and Allison running in the 3rd spot is Waltrip, 4th is Rudd, and those 4 are going to decide it in less than 5.
Literally, you know who's going to win this race is the team that has the best set of mathematicians on it. And I say that very literally, not figuratively. Every one of those first 4 cars has shown us that that team has the ability to go to the front. The question is, when do you make your move to move the 3rd, to move the 2nd, to eventually move to the lead? It doesn't look like anybody is going to be able to hook up as a 1-car or 2-car draft and break away. The team that can figure out through conjecture when is the best time to make that move, they're the ones that are going to win this.
And you know what? I'll speculate. I think the magnificence perhaps of auto racing is that for all the effort and all the teamwork and all the coordination that goes into building these automobiles now as the leaders work their way through lap traffic, in the final analysis, it comes down to the man who holds the wheel and pushes down the pedal. It's just been a superb race, and now it's going to be up to one of these 4 drivers to demonstrate that remarkable surge on the last lap that will pull out the victory. And I'll tell you what, the way they're running, we could see them come down there 4 abreast. It could be the greatest finish in Talladega history, and it is now less than 3 laps away.
Boy, I'll tell you, I almost feel like just sitting back and watching these guys because words cannot describe what's going on right now. 4 superstars in their chosen profession. They are putting on a tremendous job. There's just no way of describing the fantastic effort that each of these 4 guys has made, each in his own right. At least 2 of these drivers has had trouble this day. They've had some problems with the race cars. Buddy Baker had some mechanical problems with the race car. Bobby Allison, they had to do some repair on the sheet metal. Ricky Rudd, the young driver who has never won a super speedway race, and Darrell Waltrip also delayed in one of his late pit stops. They have all overcome adversity today. We have recorded 186 laps. They are on the 2nd turn. Now the backstretch with 1 1/2 laps to go.
197.5 miles an hour on the last lap. They are running a full 2 miles an hour faster than they qualified out here as Buddy Baker takes Waltrip into the number 2 spot. Baker made the move. Waltrip went with him. Allison puts the foot down up on the top side and holds off Waltrip. That's another key move. Here is a charge on the inside from Ricky Rudd. They are coming to the white flag, indicating 1 lap to go. Down into the tri-oval. This is going to be the battleground just 1 lap from now. The white flag is out. The final lap of the Winston 500 is underway. Baker and Allison open it up by about 2, perhaps 3 car lengths over Waltrip and Rudd. We're coming to a finish.
As we came down for the white flag, Rudd caught himself alongside of Waltrip. And as we commented earlier today, when you're running side by side, you can't go as quick, and that might have cost Waltrip and Rudd victory.
Lap traffic in front of them as they go down the backstretch for the final time. Bobby Allison will lead Buddy Baker into turn 3. A year ago, Buddy Baker led Dale Earnhardt into that same piece of real estate and held on to win it. Up on the outside goes Baker. Down on the inside, Waltrip made a move. Allison, Waltrip sandwiched in the middle. Baker up on the top. Ricky Rudd on the tail end. They're coming to the checkered flag at Alabama International. Bobby Allison has won the Winston 500. Allison wins it, and look at the crew. Look at Bobby Allison's wife. They are thrilled, excited. Everything you could say about one of the most magnificent finishes in stock car racing history. Larry, that was just superb. Allison did it his way. Allison led the final lap all the way around the Speedway. Buddy Baker and Darrell Waltrip did everything imaginable to try to get around him. Ricky Rudd, I think, was content to sit back and watch it all happen. There was no place for him to go. There's Bobby's dad, the man with the cooler. You can see him there in the red cap and the gray shirt, sitting, holding the cooler there beside the pit wall. That's Bobby's dad, and boy, how proud he must be of his young son who has won the Winston 500.
I'll bet the crew feels retribution for Daytona. It's got to be a nice way to make up for what happened at Daytona.
A spectacular finish. Buddy Baker's got to be pleased. I mean, his record at Alabama International Speedway continues to be superb. A wreck-marred race. The Allison crew thrilled, excited. 7 caution flags in this race here today, but that's all forgotten now as Bobby Allison salutes his legions of Alabama fans rolling down pit road and into some of the most hallowed real estate in all of racing, Victory Lane here at Alabama International Speedway. He'll stop to pick up the members of his crew and take them for a most enjoyable Sunday ride here. Waddell Wilson, whom Allison calls the finest engine builder and crew chief in the business, certainly built a good 500-mile rocket ship for this race here today. Now they're all saddled up on the fenders and on the doors of that number 28 machine as they head for Victory Lane.
We know they showed up at Daytona with the Pontiac, and they've made the switch to the Buick race car for this super speedway race, and they got to feel like they made the right decision. They felt that the change of rules really prohibited the Pontiac car from running up front, and today with the switch to the Buick, as so many of the top teams have done, the Buick just seems to be the right combination of aerodynamics and horsepower right now to run up front, and today a Buick race car carried Bobby Allison to his second Winston 500 race in 3 years.
Well, for Bobby Allison, his second victory in this race, won it in '79, came back to win it again in 1981, and if there was ever a race that he can chalk up on the wall as one that he earned, it was this one here today. He defeated Buddy Baker by a car length as they came to the stripe, Baker finishing in second spot. Baker had Darrell Waltrip's front fender right alongside his doorpost as Waltrip came home third, and Ricky Rudd did a spectacular job in finishing fourth. The last car on the lead lap was Donnie Allison. What a great day for the Alabama gang. We'll be back in just a moment. And a celebration underway in Victory Lane. There with the winner is our Ned Jarrett.
Well, congratulations, Bobby, on the super win.
Man, I'm really tickled. The car runs so strong all day. You know, I could just go right back by those guys, but they kept lining up and getting in line and getting back by me. So we just had to sit there and depend on this old Waddell Wilson engine to pull us on through.
Have you ever won a 500-mile race and had so many problems?
No, and you know, we talked earlier that so far we had never made up a lap, but we made up a lap today. We had a lot of problems, and the guys just kept on working and kept on working. All I had to do was sit in there so that we had somebody to wave when the race was over.
Bobby, the lost bumper from the rear didn't seem to affect you that much.
Well, the car got a little bit looser, but you know, I couldn't really tell anything bad. The guys looked at the tire wear for us, and I was real pleased that they come back and said the tire wear was good, and you know, everything just super. I'm just tickled.
And of course, this locked up the first leg of the point standings for you, put you in good shape towards your first national championship.
Well, that's the best way to do it that I know how.
It certainly is. Judy, his wife, I know you're real proud here too.
I sure am. Very excited.
You had to be on pins and needles many times
today.
I sure was. Well, she's relaxed. Well, I guess you might say relaxed right now. Of course, it's a lot of celebration here in Victory Lane at a popular victory here in Alabama for one of its home state heroes.
Bobby Allison, leader of the Alabama gang, proud victor here in Alabama in the Winston 500. We'll be back with some final thoughts in just a moment.